Who are you, sir?
Frank Zeigler, owner of Zeigler Exotic Cars in Phoenixville, Pennsylvania.
All right, and that's where we are today, right?
Right, that's correct.
And what do you work on here?
Porsche, Ferrari, Lamborghini, Lotus, Maserati, Aston Martin, pretty much all the exotics. We also do BMW, Audi, Bentley, Rolls-Royce, but mostly tend towards the exotic Italian sports cars and heavily into Porsche as well.
And can you tell me a little bit about this car?
This car here is a 74 Maserati Merak. Maserati was owned by Citroën from 68 to 77, so this car came to us in really rough condition. It had a blown up clutch. It also had a popped head gasket where the engine was locked up. The suspension was worn front and rear to the point that we did a total mechanical rebuild of all the mechanicals on the car. It has some interesting features as far as the Citroën stuff that's on there. This has, for the brake system, the clutch, and the headlights, it's ran off a hydraulic pump. That system was used during that time on the Bora, the Campson, the Indy, and this car was, like I said, for the headlights, the clutch, and the brakes. For some of the other cars, it was for the seat adjustment, forward and back, the hydraulics, the pedal height adjustment, and a few other things or whatever. So times people would say, I have an oil leak inside my car, and it's because the adjustable seat was leaking hydraulic fluid. This has a 3-liter engine, and that's the reason Citroën bought Maserati, was to get that 3-liter V6, because that's what's in the SMs. And it's a very odd engine as far as like 3 timing chains. It's an odd fire engine. It fires one cylinder at 90 degrees, and then the next one is 150 degrees of crankshaft rotation, whereas most cars, the crank turns 720 degrees for one cycle. Divide that by the number of cylinders, and it fires every 90 degrees or every 60 degrees or whatever. Very high maintenance car with that 3-liter engine. Timing chains are to be inspected and adjusted every 3,000 miles. It's a neat car. We had to fabricate a ton of parts for this. We had to come up with our own fixes for a lot of stuff because there's no sources for it as far as a lot of some of the stuff you just got to make up yourself.
Now, when I first came here, I saw that the engine was actually out of the car.
Yeah, the engine was totally rebuilt, and because it's so difficult to get the engine and trans out of this, we ran it on an engine stand to make sure that we had no leaks and no problems with overheating or any kind of things that we assembled wrong or anything like that. So yes, we ran it outside the car for a good month off and on just to tweak stuff. And then obviously when we put it in the car and it comes under load of the powertrain, things changed a little bit and we had to deal with a bunch of other situations and stuff. But the one thing I will say, which is surprising, is the quality of the gaskets and seals for this Maserati is actually very good. In some ways better than some of the Ferraris that we do as far as the quality of the materials, the factory stuff, which was surprising. But it's definitely a powertrain you don't want to take out twice. Everything literally comes apart as a puzzle, and it has to go back in that same order. And most cars you work on, you can get away with, oh, I forgot that, but I can get that in and assemble it now. This thing here, if it came apart 1, 2, 3, it has to go back together 3, 2, 1. If not, you're wasting your time. That's how tight everything is on there.
Does she run? Does she drive now?
Yeah, and it's pretty much down to the last couple tuning in of some of the stuff. We were able to tune the carbs in and everything and get really good drivability. But this thing definitely likes high RPM. Driving around cruising, it runs decent, but it really likes the 5,000 RPM all day long. And, you know, in the course of road testing, this is the hydraulic pump here for the Citroen system. We had a slight leak, and we knew that, and we were just driving it around just to get a feel for the engine, and you know, this totally blew out. This also has the inboard brakes, inboard parking brake. It also has some oddities as far as the cam setup and everything, but it's a neat car. I mean, I enjoy working on it, even though it's been quite a journey. And this car basically was ran till it died. And when I mean, like I said, it came in for a clutch, the flywheel was cracked in half. And then I figured out after I got it back together, and I go to shift it on the lift, the shift linkage on these cars are known for having issues. And the reason the guy smoked the clutch and destroyed it was because the car was starting out in third gear the whole time. And so it was a matter of messing around with replacing the shift cable, having to adjust the linkage because as the engine mount sagged on it over time, it changed the throw. So that was just one of the many things. The blown head gasket, like I said, there was the one cylinder was filled with coolant. A few more road tests, and we put the lid back on it, the deck lid, and it's about ready to go home. And it's been quite an experience as far as that goes. And there's a reason why a lot of people won't touch the Citroen Maseratis.
Yeah, and it's such a unique shape. I mean, it's got that wedge shape, which is so nice.
Yeah. Now, it is a good-looking car. I mean, that's one thing I'll say. It's neat to drive. Once we finally got it sorted out and driving it and everything, it sounds good, and it likes 5,000 RPM all day long. It's geared towards taking it down the turnpike and just driving it. It's definitely cold-blooded. You fire it up cold. It has to get some heat in it for it to really start purring and really running up to snuff. But it's a neat car.
And Frank, obviously this is a Lotus focused channel, so can you tell me a little bit about the Lotuses that you work on here?
Pretty much anything from vintage up to the current Evoras. I'm factory trained. I worked for Lotus from the late 80s to the mid 90s, so all the way through the S3s, S4, S4Ss into the V8 cars. But obviously we do a lot of Elises, Exiges, a lot of Evoras. We have all the factory scan tools, workshop manuals and stuff like that, so we're very familiar. It's not uncommon to have 4 or 5 Lotuses here at a time. We'll get a European from time to time, Alans, pretty much the whole gamut.
And what do you think about the build quality of the Lotus compared to, say, a Ferrari or a Maserati or some of the other things you work on?
I think the build quality is really good on their cars. I mean, at the dealership in the early 90s on the Esprits, when they were brand new, we didn't have a whole lot of problems. The early V8s, we did have some issues when they first came out. But as far as the Elise and Exige and Evora, they're almost bulletproof cars. As far as Evora, you could drive every day. It's rare that we've ever had major failures on anything, even with people that track them and track them hard. So no, I can't say anything bad. But the only thing sometimes that comes up is some of the body parts for some of the Lotus things are tough to get. Not so much regular mechanical parts, but we had a lease that a deer jumped on the front clamshell and wrecked the clamshell, and it took us like 8 months to get a clamshell for it. So other than that, I got nothing bad to say. I mean, they're good cars. They're they have just enough stuff on them, and they're still relatively basic. They don't have all the bells and whistles, which you shouldn't want anyway. I mean, it's one more thing that will break, and so to speak. So now, since I know there's been more money dumped into them, yeah, they should be starting to bring more cars into the states and everything, and hopefully get their dealer network straightened out and everything.
That's great. So if someone has, a Lotus or a Ferrari, where should we take it?
Should bring it here to Zeigler Exotic Cars, and we'll take care of you.
All right. Thanks a lot, Frank.
My pleasure. Thank you.